What's up, everyone? I'm Gino DiCaprio, and welcome to my page, where we dive into the most pressing topics of our time. Today, we're tackling a sensitive issue that's sparking intense debate: reparations. The call for reparations in the United States has taken an interesting turn. Rather than solely targeting the government or institutions, some are advocating for a more personal approach, which I believe the government is not responsible or should cover, since it will come from the taxpayer who had no involvement or even had a history of involvement. So no, the government should not be paying it out. They argue that reparations should be sought from the descendants of slave owners, regardless of their race. This means that African Americans who had ancestors that owned slaves would also be liable. It's a complex and sensitive issue, as it requires tracing down individual families and their histories. Proponents of this approach argue that it's not about blaming the country or its institutions, but rather about holding specific individuals and families accountable for their ancestors' actions. This approach acknowledges that it was the North, led by the Union, that played a crucial role in ending slavery, ultimately prevailing in the Civil War. Since the North, representing the U.S. government, fought against slavery, it's clear that the responsibility lies with individual slave owners and their descendants, rather than the government as a whole. It's worth noting that if the Confederacy had won the Civil War, the situation would be different. In that scenario, the government would have been explicitly responsible for perpetuating and protecting the institution of slavery. However, since the North prevailed and slavery was abolished, the focus should shift to holding individual slave owners and their descendants accountable. Comparisons to Germany's government-sponsored atrocities during World War II are also misplaced. In that case, both the government and citizens were directly involved, making them collectively responsible. In contrast, the U.S. situation involves individual slave owners and their descendants who should be held accountable. Now, I'd like to leave you with a thought-provoking question. How do you think this approach to reparations will impact the ongoing conversation about racial justice and accountability in the United States?